There is a disturbing reason why 99% of people die without discovering they are selecting which version of the future they will live every second. And it's not coincidental that this knowledge has been systematically hidden since childhood. While you struggle to change external circumstances, spending years in therapy and consuming self-help books, a tiny elite uses specific consciousness technology to shape reality as if editing a movie. Classified documents from the American government exposed cases of ordinary people accessing future events before they physically happened. What you're about to discover about the I am within you has been deliberately distorted by institutions. Because once you understand that the physical world is only the effect of what you hold in consciousness, not the cause, every external control system loses power over your life.
Every second, you are selecting which version of the future to experience, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. The physical world that your eyes capture, that your hands touch, that seems so solid and unchangeable, constitutes only the frozen effect of something that first existed in a completely different dimension, your own consciousness. This is not a poetic metaphor or a comforting theory. It is the literal functioning of reality, confirmed both by ancient mystical traditions and by the most advanced quantum physics. Consider the moments when you knew that something would happen before any physical evidence. That feeling about receiving a specific phone call seconds before the phone rings. The inexplicable certainty that you would meet someone moments before the person appears. These are not coincidences or tricks of the mind. They are glimpses of a fundamental human capacity, the perception of events that already exist completely formed in higher dimensions, merely awaiting their sequential manifestation in the three-dimensional world. Life on Earth follows a plan that already exists in another dimension, gradually moving through three-dimensional space like a film passing through a projector. When someone observes something before it happens here, they are perceiving a reality that exists outside of this world, a dimension where past, present, and future coexist simultaneously. Time functions as the fourth dimension, measuring objects not through their spatial properties, but through their duration and capacity for change. Imagine that each three-dimensional object represents only a frozen moment slice of its complete existence. When you meet another person, you see only a cross-section of them at that specific instant, not the totality of their existence that extends from birth to death. To truly perceive someone in their complete four-dimensional totality, it would be necessary to see all the moments of their life coexisting as an animated and living whole. The most extraordinary and carefully hidden characteristic of the human future is its absolute malleability. The internal attitudes of a person, not their external actions, determine which path they will follow. At every moment, multiple possible futures are available for choice, and consciousness selects which one to experience through the focus of attention and the fundamental beliefs held about oneself. But here is the revolutionary secret that completely transforms this understanding. The fundamental I am within each person, that pure sensation of existence before any qualification or identification, is the only true reality and the creative power of all experience. The physical world is not the cause of anything. It is exclusively the effect of what is held as true in inner consciousness. This knowledge does not come from abstract philosophical speculation. It emerges from the convergence between the practical teachings of masters like Neville Goddard, who empirically demonstrated how conscious imagination shapes physical reality, and the non-dual wisdom of Ramana Maharshi, who revealed through self-inquiry that the I am is the very source of manifestation. When quantum physics discovered that the observer collapses the wave function, determining which possibility becomes reality, it was only rediscovering in scientific language what these traditions have always known. You literally create your future through a specific and replicable process. First, you clearly define what you want. Second, you mentally construct a scene that would imply that your desire has already been realized, something where you are an active participant, not a distant observer. Third, in a relaxed state similar to sleep, you feel yourself living that scene with all sensory intensity until it seems absolutely real. The difference between success and failure in this process lies in feeling yourself living the experience here and now, not observing yourself from afar as on a screen. The fundamental secret that invalidates all external struggle is this: when you genuinely assume internally "I am," followed by the desired state, prosperous, loved, healthy, and maintain that feeling as your inner reality, ignoring what the physical senses show, the outer world inevitably reorganizes itself to reflect that conviction. It is exactly like planting a seed. You trust the invisible process, knowing that it contains the intrinsic power to become the plant. You are always creating from your current state of consciousness, consciously or not. The question, "Who am I?" leads back to this pure "I am," dissolving limiting identifications. From this space of pure potentiality, one can consciously assume any desired state, knowing that one is not creating from a separate ego, but from the very universal consciousness that one essentially is. Reality operates through laws that have been deliberately obscured by conventional education, but which certain traditions have preserved through symbolic language and direct practice. Neville Goddard, a 20th century mystic who studied with Abdullah, an Ethiopian rabbi versed in Kabbalah, discovered that human imagination is not a secondary faculty or mere daydreaming. It is the very center of the human being, the mechanism through which all reality crystallizes. Goddard repeatedly demonstrated that the world as imagination perceives it constitutes the real world for each individual. Through dedicated practice and intense meditation, when the mind reaches a state of inner luminosity, imagination acquires an extraordinary magnetic power, irresistibly attracting what one contemplates. Desire functions as the energy that imagination uses to sculpt life around it, exactly as one first sculpts it within oneself. In parallel, in 20th century India, Ramana Maharshi was arriving at the same conclusions through an apparently different path. His investigation through the question, "Who am I?" was not an abstract philosophical exercise, but a precise technology of consciousness. Each answer that arises, "I am this body, I am this profession, I am these thoughts," can be questioned more deeply. Who is the one who perceives the body? Who observes the profession? Who witnesses the thoughts? This persistent investigation eventually dissolves all false identifications, revealing the pure I am, the consciousness without attributes that exist before any qualification or limitation. Maharshi discovered that realizing the true self is discovering that you are the very source of manifestation. There is no fundamental difference between the observer and the power that creates the universes. Modern quantum physics, without fully realizing the implications, has validated these discoveries. When double-slit experiments demonstrated that particles exist in superposition until they are observed, when quantum entanglement proved that particles separated by astronomical distances respond instantly to each other, science was rediscovering that consciousness is not contained in the universe. The universe is contained in consciousness. Time, properly understood as the fourth dimension, is not a line where events succeed one another, but a territory where all moments coexist. Each decision, each possibility, each variation of your life exists simultaneously at this moment, at different coordinates of that temporal dimension. You are not walking through time. You are selecting which timeline to experience through the state of consciousness that you maintain. The assumptions that a person maintains, even those that seem trivial or insignificant, produce profound and lasting effects on their reality. One acts in a certain way and has specific experiences because the fundamental concept about who one is continuously shapes the world. When someone genuinely changes their self-concept, they automatically reconfigure the entire trajectory of the future. The process works with mathematical precision. One assumes the feeling of already being what one desires, and then lives and acts from that inner conviction. This assumption, even when all physical senses deny it, when maintained with persistence, gradually crystallizes into concrete fact in the outer world. It is like planting an invisible seed that, nourished by conviction, inevitably sprouts in physical reality. There is a simple test to verify if someone has successfully fixed a new state of consciousness. Mentally observe the people you know. If in imagination they naturally treat the person according to their new concept of themselves, if they see them as successful, healthy, or fulfilled as they are assuming to be, then the internal change has occurred and external manifestation is only a matter of time. Imagination operates with absolute impartiality. It responds with equal readiness to both constructive and destructive thoughts. Like an obedient servant who doesn't question the master's orders, it works tirelessly to manifest what one concentrates on most intensely. Therefore, the responsibility to consciously direct imagination toward what is noble, beautiful, and constructive becomes fundamental. Desire and imagination together function like the legendary magic wand of fairy tales, possessing the real power to attract and materialize their own vibrational affinities. But unlike fairy tales, this power is not fantasy. It is the literal functioning of reality, available to anyone who understands and applies these laws. I am constitutes the self-definition of the absolute, the primordial root from which all experience springs. This fundamental truth unites Goddard's discoveries about creative imagination with Maharshi's realization about the nature of the self. Both arrived at the same revolutionary conclusion. You have no one to change except yourself, and when you genuinely manage to transform your inner consciousness, the outer world seems to melt and magically reconfigure itself, aligning perfectly with your new inner vibration. The I am is not a religious affirmation or an abstract philosophical concept. It is the very fundamental structure upon which all possible experience is built. Before any person can say, I am a doctor, I am poor, I am successful, there exists this primordial I am, the pure consciousness that precedes all qualification. This is not an idea to be understood intellectually, but a living reality to be recognized directly. When someone pronounces I am, they are invoking the same power that ancient scriptures attributed to divinity. I am that I am was not just a divine name, it was the revelation of the fundamental nature of consciousness. Every human being carries this same I am as their deepest essence, but most spend their entire life without recognizing that they literally possess the creative power of the universe operating through them. The investigation, Who Am I?, functions as a precision scalpel that cuts through layers of false identification. When a person sincerely questions Who am I?, they initiate a journey of return to the source that systematically undoes all illusion, the body. But who perceives the body? The thoughts. But who observes the thoughts arising and disappearing? The emotions. But who witnesses the emotions floating like clouds in the sky of consciousness? Each layer of identification, when examined directly, reveals itself as an object in consciousness, not consciousness itself. The process continues until all identifications dissolve, leaving only the naked I am, without qualifications, without limitations, without boundaries. This is not a dead void or an absence. It is pure living potentiality, the infinite field from which all manifestation emerges. It is exactly from this primordial, I am, that reality is consciously created. Once established in this absolute foundation, any desired state can be consciously assumed. I am abundant, I am healthy, I am fulfilled. The crucial difference is that now one is not trying to change a limited ego or manipulate external circumstances. One is allowing the universal consciousness itself to assume a new form. The process becomes a sacred dance between the absolute and the relative. Through self-inquiry, one returns to the pure I am, dissolving limiting identifications. Then, from this space of pure potentiality, one consciously assumes the feeling of the desire fulfilled. It is no longer a matter of trying to force changes or fight against reality. It is simply allowing the consciousness that one is to naturally assume the desired configuration. The one who deeply understands this truth, that the I am within them is the same creative power that shapes the universes, and who develops the ability to consciously direct this power through focused imagination, becomes truly free. They are no longer a prisoner of circumstances, but a conscious co-creator with the divine. Human consciousness reveals itself not as something one possesses, but as what one essentially is, the only real foundation upon which all experience unfolds. Each person is literally a focal point through which the universal I am experiences itself in particular form. Separation is the illusion. Unity with the creative power is the reality. When this understanding penetrates deeply, life can never be seen the same way again. Each circumstance, each relationship, each event reveals itself as a projection of the state of consciousness held internally. Nothing in the outer world has its own power. Everything derives its apparent power from the consciousness that perceives it and gives it meaning. The method for applying this knowledge is direct but profound. First, through the investigation, who am I? One establishes oneself in the pure I am, temporarily transcending all personal stories and limitations. Second, from this space of infinite possibility, one consciously chooses which state to assume, which reality to experience. Third, one remains faithful to this inner choice, regardless of what the physical senses may temporarily show. The most liberating and simultaneously most challenging realization is that you are always creating from your current state of consciousness, consciously or not. There is no moment when you are not manifesting. The only question is whether you are creating consciously from the recognition of your true nature, or unconsciously from conditioned patterns and inherited limiting beliefs. This I am is both the creator and the creation, the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream. Recognizing this is not adopting a beautiful philosophy, it is awakening to the literal functioning of reality. And once awakened to this truth, it becomes impossible to fall completely back asleep, impossible to again believe that you are a victim of circumstances when you are, in fact, their author. Many people have already experienced the ability to observe events before they happen in the physical world. We are not talking about vague intuitions or statistical coincidences. There are documented cases of people who described with specific precision future events, from mundane details like casual encounters to significant happenings like accidents or unexpected opportunities. This phenomenon reveals that life on Earth follows a plan that already exists in another dimension, gradually moving through our three-dimensional space. When you observe something before it happens here, you are perceiving a reality that exists outside of this world, a dimension where past, present, and future coexist simultaneously. Time functions as the fourth dimension, measuring objects not through their spatial properties, but through their duration and capacity for change. Imagine that each three-dimensional object you encounter represents only a frozen moment slice of its complete existence, When you meet another person, you see only a cross-section of them at that specific instant, not the totality of their existence that extends from birth to death. To truly perceive someone in their complete four-dimensional totality, you would need to see all the moments of their life coexisting as an animated and living whole. This is not speculative fantasy. Remote viewing experiments conducted by government institutions have repeatedly demonstrated that trained observers can access information from distant locations and even from different temporal moments. There exists a specific and powerful method for shaping the future through the conscious use of imagination. The process begins with the clear definition of your goal. You need to know exactly what you want to achieve. Next, you mentally construct an event that would naturally occur after the realization of your desire. This event should be something where you are the active participant, not just a distant observer. The third step involves physical and mental preparation. You immobilize the body, lying down comfortably or relaxing in a chair, and induce a state of consciousness similar to sleep. That twilight state where you still maintain control over your thoughts, but the body is deeply relaxed. In this special state of consciousness, you mentally project yourself inside the imagined scene, actively participating in it until it possesses all the sensation of reality. For example, imagine that you desire a promotion at work. Instead of simply visualizing yourself receiving the news, you construct a scene where a friend warmly shakes your hand, congratulating you on the achievement. You feel the texture and warmth of their hand, hear the genuine tone of joy in their voice, feel the emotion of accomplishment coursing through your body. The crucial difference lies between feeling yourself living the experience here and now versus observing yourself from afar as on a movie screen. You must make the distant near, the future present, because this event already exists as concrete reality in a greater dimension. You are merely synchronizing your consciousness with it. The process works because you are not creating something from nothing. You are selecting which of the infinite already existing possibilities you choose to experience. The assumptions that you maintain, even those that seem trivial or insignificant, produce profound and lasting effects on your reality. You act in a certain way and have the experiences you have because your fundamental concept about who you are continuously shapes your world. When you genuinely change your self-concept, you automatically reconfigure the entire trajectory of your future. The process works like this. You assume the feeling of already being what you desire, and then live and act from that inner conviction. This assumption, even when all your physical senses deny it, when maintained with persistence, gradually crystallizes into concrete fact in the outer world. It is like planting an invisible seed that, nourished by your conviction, inevitably sprouts in physical reality. You can verify if you have successfully fixed a new state of consciousness through a simple test. Mentally observe the people you know. If in your imagination they naturally treat you according to your new concept of yourself, if they see you as the successful, healthy, or fulfilled person you are assuming to be, then the internal change has occurred, and external manifestation is only a matter of time. During meditation, allow others to see you exactly as they would see you if your desire were already an accomplished fact. One of the most liberating and at the same time challenging revelations is this: you have no one to change except yourself. When you genuinely manage to transform your inner consciousness, the outer world seems to melt and magically reconfigure itself, aligning perfectly with your new inner vibration. It is as if the entire universe conspires to reflect your internal transformation. Nothing in your experience is more crucial than your fundamental conception of yourself. The people who appear to help or hinder you on your journey are, consciously or not, instruments of a universal law that continuously shapes external circumstances to harmonize with your inner nature. They appear in your life not by chance, but as precise reflections of your state of consciousness. Trying to force changes in the outer world without first transforming your inner world is like trying to change the image in the mirror without changing the face it reflects. Every external effort, when not accompanied by a corresponding change in consciousness, results only in superficial and temporary rearrangements that inevitably return to the original pattern. The circumstances of your life are so intimately interwoven with your self-conception that they could only have been woven by your own spirit, emerging from some greater and deeper reservoir of your being. The practical application of this knowledge radically transforms every area of human existence. In relationships, the person stops trying to change their partner and begins to change the conception they hold about them. Instantly, behaviors that seemed fixed begin to dissolve. The distant partner becomes attentive, the critical one becomes supportive, not because they were convinced or manipulated, but because they are responding to the change in the field of consciousness that perceives them. In health, instead of fighting against symptoms, the person internally assumes the state of perfect vitality. They feel themselves moving with energy, breathe as someone completely healthy would breathe, imagine friends commenting on their radiant appearance. The body, being only the shadow of consciousness, reorganizes itself to correspond to the image held internally. Documented cases show unexplainable remissions, recoveries considered impossible by medicine, always preceded by a fundamental change in the individual's state of consciousness. In the professional and financial field, the person stops chasing opportunities and begins to embody the state of already being prosperous. They assume the feeling of financial security, act from abundance instead of scarcity. Opportunities that seem non-existent arise spontaneously. People appear offering exactly what is needed. Synchronicities multiply to such a point that it becomes impossible to attribute them to chance. Imagination operates with absolute impartiality. It responds with equal readiness to both constructive and destructive thoughts. Like an obedient servant who doesn't question the master's orders, it works tirelessly to manifest what you most intensely concentrate on. Therefore, the responsibility to consciously direct your imagination toward what is noble, beautiful, and constructive becomes fundamental. Desire and imagination together function like the legendary magic wand of fairy tales, possessing the real power to attract and materialize their own vibrational affinities. But here arises the controversy that the rational mind resists accepting. This is not positive thinking or law of attraction diluted for popular consumption. It is a technology of consciousness that requires surgical precision. The difference between fantasy and directed creative imagination is the same as between daydreaming about wealth and genuinely feeling yourself living as someone prosperous lives, breathing as they breathe, moving as they move. Critics point to apparent failures of the method without realizing that they were operating from the ego's desire, not from the fundamental I am. When someone tries to manifest from the sensation of lack, they are affirming lack. When they try to create from the fear of not succeeding, they are creating more experiences of not succeeding. The secret lies in first dissolving oneself in the pure I am through self-inquiry, and then assuming the desired state from this space of completeness. Modern neuroscience inadvertently confirms these principles. Studies on neuroplasticity demonstrate that the brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and one physically lived. When athletes practice mentally, the same neural networks are activated as if they were practicing physically. When someone repeatedly imagines a scene with sufficient sensory intensity, the brain rewires itself as if the experience had already occurred multiple times. Experiments in quantum physics go even further. The observer effect is not a metaphor. It is the literal demonstration that consciousness collapses possibilities into realities. Delayed choice experiments show that decisions in the present can affect the past. suggesting that linear time is a construction of limited perception, not a fundamental characteristic of reality. Research institutes have documented statistically significant cases of precognition, confirmed remote viewing, and the influence of intention on random number generators. The Institute of Noetic Sciences has compiled decades of data showing that human consciousness affects physical systems in ways that the materialist paradigm cannot explain. Each discovery points to the same revolutionary conclusion. Consciousness is not produced by the brain. The brain is an instrument through which consciousness focuses itself in three-dimensional reality. The question of free will versus determinism dissolves when understood from this perspective. All possible futures already exist in the higher dimension. Free will consists of choosing which timeline to experience through the state of consciousness maintained. You are not creating possibilities. You are selecting among infinite possibilities already existing. You are simultaneously totally free and operating within precise laws. The ethical implications are profound. If each person is literally creating their experience through the state of consciousness they maintain, then blaming others or external circumstances becomes impossible. But this doesn't lead to isolation or indifference. On the contrary, recognizing that everyone is an expression of the same fundamental I am creates genuine compassion. Helping others awaken to their creative power becomes the highest possible service. The confluence between Neville Goddard's wisdom about conscious imagination and Ramana Maharshi's non-dual investigation reveals a truth that challenges all social programming received since birth. Both paths converge at the same revolutionary point. The I am within each person is not a part of universal consciousness. It is the totality of it, experiencing itself through a specific focal point. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. When Ramana taught that realizing the true self is discovering that you are the very source of manifestation, he was not being poetic. When Goddard demonstrated that imagination focused with feeling inevitably materializes in the physical world, he was not selling hope. Both were revealing the literal mechanism through which reality operates, a mechanism deliberately hidden because its understanding dissolves all external control structures. It is exactly from this primordial I am that you can consciously create your reality. Once established in this foundation through the question, who am I? Dissolving all false identifications, you can consciously add any desired state. I am abundant, I am healthy, I am fulfilled. The fundamental difference is that now you do this knowing that you are not creating from the limited ego, but from the very universal consciousness that you are. The process becomes a sacred dance between the absolute and the relative. Through self-inquiry, you return to the pure I am, dissolving limiting identifications. Then, from this space of pure potentiality, you consciously assume the feeling of your desire fulfilled. You are no longer trying to change a separate ego or fight against reality. You are simply allowing the consciousness that you are to assume a new form, knowing that I am is both the creator and the creation. Consider deeply this question. If you knew with absolute certainty that your consciousness is literally shaping every aspect of your experience at this exact moment, that you are selecting which of the infinite possible versions of reality to experience through the internal state you maintain, what would you choose to hold as true about yourself? Would you continue feeding the same limiting assumptions, the same stories of inadequacy, the same patterns of scarcity? The most extraordinary characteristic of the human future remains its absolute malleability. Your internal attitudes, not your external actions, determine which path you will follow. At every moment, multiple possible futures are available for you to choose, and your consciousness selects which one to experience through the focus of your attention and the fundamental beliefs you hold about yourself. The one who deeply understands this truth, that the I am within them is the same creative power that shapes the universes, and who develops the ability to consciously direct this power through focused imagination, becomes truly free. They are no longer a prisoner of circumstances, but a conscious co-creator with the divine. Human consciousness reveals itself not as something you possess, but as what you essentially are, the only real foundation upon which all experience unfolds. You are always creating from your current state of consciousness, consciously or not. The question, "Who am I?" leads you back to this pure I am, dissolving limiting identifications. From this space of pure potentiality, you can consciously assume any desired state, knowing that you are not creating from a separate ego, but from the very universal consciousness that you essentially are. The physical world that you perceive is not the cause, but the effect of what you hold as true in your inner consciousness. Imagine that all external reality is a three-dimensional projection of something that first exists in a greater dimension, your own consciousness. When you genuinely assume internally, I am, followed by the desired state, and maintain that feeling as your inner reality, ignoring what the physical senses show, the outer world inevitably reorganizes itself to reflect that conviction. All change begins with the understanding of your role as co-creator, and the only way to connect with this divine intelligence is through meditation. We have developed a set of audio tools to help you access this higher state of consciousness. To learn more and gain immediate access, click on the link on the screen or in the comments. If this video resonated with you, write in the comments, "It made sense to me,"